All right, I'm going to go ahead and start giving you those 3 tips. So if you got your pencils ready, pens at the ready, then we can start moving forward. 3 tips. First and foremost, number 1 is you need a signature solution. You've got to find something that makes you different in this genre, in this area that you want to speak to people. You've got to find a solution that will be unique and will be something that sets you apart. So it doesn't mean that you're using such random new principles that have never been heard before. Pretty much we're all reinventing the wheel. We're all still saying basically the same things, but it's the way that we go about it, excuse me. So think about what makes that different. For a long time, years ago, I would say that I was helping women find life balance. Is that helpful? Does that make it memorable? No. Oh, that's that lady. She kind of helps you find balance. How does she do it? I don't know. She gives a good talk though. Made me laugh, right? Like how helpful is that? But if you say, oh, she's got this thing, people have had like the 5-minute thing to, or 3 ways to, or 7 steps to, Stephen Covey, right? Everybody knows his stuff because it's super clear and it's a very signature solution. So I love, Angela said, I like the idea of the anchor point, Jerusha. And Jordan, I think I found that my one tool is to help people find their anchor point. Sorry, I should have read that one first. Love that. So if you do anchor points, think about that. What could you do with anchors? What could you do with the logo? What could you do with the similes and the metaphors? And what could you do as examples? That's more memorable when you do something like that, instead of just, I'm going to help people find their way and be happy. So think about what that's like. I was just at a meeting for the National Speaking Association. I'm on the board, and it was an NSA night. It was fantastic. And we had a speaker there that was phenomenal. And the genius of what she did is she took us through her whole keynote, and she paused and then asked for observations on what we saw was working for her. And she had it down to a science, right from the entry where she did the entry point. She was already down on the stage doing stuff because we're all like one big family together, but she went back up, and then they played the music, played her video. She's walking down. She has certain music she chose, certain slides. She chose a certain first sentence that she did, all the things to make it aligned with her story and create contrast and do all the pieces of the thing that she needed to do. It was absolute genius. And that's what you want. And that's going to lead us into the second thing, which is a killer keynote. You need to have a killer keynote. That means you know what you're saying and you know how to effectively say it. It is not memorable to just shma for 15 minutes. Give them a whole array of buffet, and then they have nothing to hold on to. They have nothing to say. I was nourished by that. So think about what that killer keynote would look like. Clear principles and practices. So once you've got that specific signature solution, then you can create that keynote from it that will actually be memorable. So for example, with me doing the balancing thing, I was teaching different balancing tips and tools and stuff, and I was kind of just throwing out a potpourri of things that I knew worked. But it wasn't really inspiring people to go and actually have a plan to put into practice. So when I switched it to, I train certain women to find their purpose and fulfill it by being an influential speaker, writer, and media presence for him. As soon as I did that, clear. And then everything that I did after that, my killer keynote, is exactly how they can do that thing, what the steps are that they need to do to take that, so that women know, oh, I need to do this, 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 and this. And that's why we do the speaker challenge. To be a speaker challenge is giving you that first step of, oh, I'm getting a taste, and I can see specific things that I need to do in order for me to succeed in this. Specific tools and takeaways for you to practice. So that's the second thing. Any questions on those two? Any thoughts? I would love for you to think of a presentation that you've been to that was absolutely wonderful, so good. Can anyone think of one that they've been to that was so good?
Connie, I just need you to repeat the first one again in your phrase that you are using. Signature
solution. You need to find your signature solution.
Okay, I got that, but I thought there was something in between.
There was signature solution and then killer keynote.
Okay, got that. Okay, thank you.
You bet. Has anyone been to a talk that they loved, they still remember for some whatever reason, that they still remember? Anybody been to there? Ingrid, can you tell us why it was so memorable?
Yes, it was Stacey Taniguchi talking about defining your true core values and then living a life to thrive by those values. And he had us just gripped with talking about climbing these mountains and going across the crevasses with a ladder anchored on both sides horizontally across an ice cavern that's thousands of feet deep. And he's talking about what would you cross that ladder for? And we're all just on the edge of our seat, like, don't fall in. Super memorable to help us define our core values and then build a life with goals based on those things. So it was great storytelling and just so powerful because he had us visualizing ourselves being there.
Love it. Absolutely stellar. And he has incredible slides. We had him come speak at a conference and he was saying, and then he sets it up. People actually died crossing that ladder. Just last year, they said a professor who was doing this trek died, went down that thousands of miles deep crevasse. This was a very real thing. So he had stories of, he had trekked Everest, like, I don't know how many times, and he takes groups up there. And so these experiences were riveting. Now, you don't have to go climb Everest, but you can use experiences like that in your keynote to make that point. You want to make it engaging. You've got to give it more than just stand and deliver. It's got to be the kind of thing where people, when they listen, they are compelled to act. Yes, Jennifer Nielsen's keynote, that's actually, she's the one that helped me with that imagery that was actually early on. And later on, I said, are you going to do something with that? She's like, actually, I'm working on a keynote on that, because it was just some advice that she hadn't just given to me. I'm sure she gave it to a lot of other people, but she gave me some advice. And I was like, that was the best advice I ever got. So I love, she gave a visual of climbing Mount Everest and comparing it to the takeaways of how to do that with our work as writers. And it's phenomenal. If you ever get a chance to hear Jennifer Nielsen, New York Times bestselling author, she's phenomenal. Her speaking style is so authentic and it is fingerprint unique. It is all the things engaging and real and takeaways. It's phenomenal. Even if you're not a writer, go to whatever she's doing to hear her speak. Then the last third thing is, you're going to guess it, get skills. You got to get skills. Like in Daniel, it says, get skills and understanding. Get skills. It's not enough for you to say, I want to be a speaker and I think I can do a pretty good job and I think I'll go practice. That's awesome. But remember, Malcolm Caldwell talks about 10,000 hours. Now that's been disputed if it's a real thing or not, but the concept makes sense to me, that by the time we hit a certain point, 10,000 hours, that we're hitting our groove. But what he says in there is, Michael Jordan didn't do 10,000 hours of practicing his shots. He did 10,000 intentional hours. If we do a 10,000 hours of a shot that's a bad shot, what's going to happen? We're going to be a really bad shot. So we want to do skills. We want to tweak and adjust and get better and better. And this book ends the very beginning of what I was sharing with you, which is learning how to take that feedback, learning what you're doing wrong and doing it better. And you will be shocked as you get more skills and understanding how many opportunities will come your way, simply because people see that you're ready to take them, even if you don't know that you're ready to take them. Angela Meyer says, Elizabeth McCormick said after doing her speech 20 times, she felt better. But I remember she said at 40, she was comfortable. By 60, she was getting referrals. So that's something interesting. She said she was going to set a goal of 100 gigs. And that was kind of the timeline of how she was doing it. So in that way, kind of around 10,000 hours. So think about that. As I've gotten more skills and as I've been responsive to that, that's when opportunities to speak at Education Week, and then do a radio show with KSL, and then do TV with Studio 5, and then be offered my own show for KJazz, and all of these things kind of coming in, and then being asked to do Call to Create with Latter-day Saint Publishing Media and the Arts, LDS PMA. I went from not thinking that I was ready for something like that, doing my own podcast, but getting those skills and practicing on my own and learning, finding out all the things, learning, life hacking it so I could do it as a mom, and to them asking me to be the host for Call to Create. And then I started doing host. I'm interviewing Steve Young and Gerald Lund and Jane Cleason Johnson just this week, who was co-anchor of the early show, and we're laughing and chatting. And at the end, and I can say this to you, at the end, she said, you were born for this. You are so good at this. Now take it with a grain of salt. She's being very gracious. But what I'm saying is, I'm sitting on the other side and going, oh my gosh, that is so validating. That makes me want to get what? More skills, so that I'm ready for the next experience that is waiting for me that I don't even know is ahead. So I encourage you, ladies, this is all from my little desk with my little microphone and laptop that's sitting on 4 books to keep it at the right height, right? It's not in some amazing studio. It's all right here, right now, learning those skills one thing at a time and letting the Lord help me to become a more effective instrument, to be able to do the things he wants me to do for the people he wants me to do it for. And that's what I would remind you. Keep looking at these skills in that way. How can you become a more effective instrument for him to do the thing that you promised to do before you came here, that he still wants you to do and has prepared the path for you to do? And I encourage you to take the next right step